Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We've got quite a global webinar panel today, who we'll come on to and introduce shortly. I can see everybody's coming on, so I'll give everybody a couple of minutes just to get settled in and do a little bit of housekeeping before we crack on and the show begins. So as we're going out throughout today, feel free to drop any questions in the comment section of the chat box. If you want to give it a go now, just say hello, make sure that you can hear us, see us okay. We know that other people are there as well. I can see numbers, but it's always nice to know that you actually exist as well within there. So feel free to ask questions as we go throughout the webinar today. If they're relevant to what we're talking about, we might pick it up there and then. If not, we'll definitely make sure we pick it up at the end. We're going to have a proper question and answer session at the end as well. I do moderate these a little bit now in case you throw some real weird curveballs in, because sometimes I used to do that and just read them out, and then as you're reading it out you think actually this is very inappropriate. So I will be monitoring them as we go along, but feel free to drop your questions into the chat box as we're going throughout the webinar today. The webinar is recorded, so if there's any bits that you miss, or there's an Amazon delivery at the door and you're going out to the door and then you think, I really wanted to hear that bit, you can go back and listen to it as well. So we'll be doing a follow-up email with any relevant links and a copy of the recording as well. So if you've got any friends, colleagues, any other businesses that you work with that you think this is going to be relevant for, feel free to share it with them. It's not a secret, the more the merrier. Share the wealth around within there. The final thing on here before we just hand over is we're not expecting any technical difficulties today. So if you do have any issues, sometimes if you've downloaded the GoToWebinar app, you can just close it all and open it back up on the links in the email. Or again, if you've got it on the browser, just close it down if it freaks out and open it back up, and that should do it. Or just go and kick the kids off Netflix or whatever they're doing in the door next door, but they should be at school. So if they are at home, you've got bigger problems. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's going to introduce himself and the panel. But before we dive into that, just say that Content Snare, so a little push from my side, is at XU Magazine. We've known the guys at Content Snare for a good while, but we've actually been using it ourselves as well over the last few months. And it's been amazing. It's really revolutionized it. And we were discussing as well before this that we used to have email chains going back and forth on stuff where you've got like 40, 50 emails long. It's like, oh my gosh, this is getting to like biblical proportions now. And it's removed all of that. So that's a little plug before we dive in, that just from our side, we've been using it ourselves and it's really good. So I'm really excited for what everybody is about to see and hear today. So over to you, Tom.
Yeah, wow, thank you for that. That was awesome. Cool. Hi, I'm Tom. I will be your driver today. So we have how to reduce client chasing ahead of MTD. That's kind of the core topic that we're going to cover. Before we get into any of that, I want to introduce you to some of my speakers. Some would say an elite lineup, minus me. So I'm going to start with Lee, and then we'll go into Phil. So Lee, do you want to give everyone just a little snapshot about you and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Lee Coombes. I'm head of accountancy at Lee Coombes Accountancy Digital. Set up our practice around about 13, 14 years ago now. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from South Wales. But we completely digitized absolutely everything during the COVID pandemic, and have now been residing and working from Spain for the last 2 years. So anything that we can, any software that we can get our hands on that can make our processes faster, easier, more streamlined, we're always on the lookout for them. And as hopefully you're going to see today, Content Snare has made a massive difference to our business.
Amazing. Phil?
Firstly, Tom, I'm just wondering who that is on screen. That young chap.
Who's that girl? I'm glad.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. So good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. My name's Phil Hobden. I'm head of new customer advocacy at Sage. You've probably heard of Sage. We've been around for well over 40 years now. A UK established and UK based technology company, working with accountants, bookkeepers, and businesses directly around a host of finance and accounting products, everything from our ledger products through to HR, payroll, and a lot more. My role at Sage is exactly what it says on the tin, right? Is to go out there and talk to people about what we're doing at Sage and ultimately get people to kind of have a look at what we're doing and kind of see that Sage has evolved so much over the last 5 years as a business, and our products, our direction, and where we're leading the way around the conversation of MTD, AI for accountants, and carbon accounting, you know, and just help you understand that. I've worked with Lee. Lee is a Sage customer. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And I've known Tom for a long time, so it's good to be here and talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Phil actually knew me when that picture was taken as well. So
I did. Yeah.
Cool. So rounding us off, I'm Tom. I'm the global BDM for Content Snare, based here in Brisbane, but I do come from the UK. Recently moved, so I've been in Australia for a year now. So I moved to Australia to then work with everyone in the UK because I don't like sleeping. What we're going to cover today is this. This is our agenda. I'm going to run through the actual problem we're chasing, because whilst we're going to touch on how we're like the element of MTD we're helping with, the big part of this is the chasing of clients. So I'm going to explain that problem, maybe something that will resonate with you, what Content Snare is and how it solves that specific problem, then where we see the impact of MTD, and then where Content Snare will be fitting into to support you there with a live demo. I'm actually probably going to go through the first couple of points quite quickly because I just want to get straight into the product so you can see that. Then we're going to have an interview with Lee. So obviously Lee's one of our users, but Lee has also done a huge amount of work for us. He's created upwards of 20 MTD templates, but also he's been working hard to get himself ready for MTD and delivered a lot of different talks, funny enough, with Phil as well, around how to get set up, what you can do. And that's also part of the reason why I wanted to invite Phil. Lee uses the Sage suite and it's going to process set up there. So Phil's obviously here to give loads of insight because he speaks to a lot of accountants and has a lot of experience, but also we can kind of really get the nuts and bolts out of Lee in terms of that setup. So as always, we have an exclusive offer for you. If there's anything that you like the look of in here and you think, hey, I want to try Content Snare, I'm going to give you a month for free. So all you would have to do, scan that QR code, start your trial, and then when you're ready, use MTD 100. That will give you a free 1 month of Content Snare on me. Okay, cool. So let's dive into the client chasing problem. Now, I speak to firms, and this is kind of what they say to me. They're constantly chasing clients for information. You need to get the job done. You have 10 things you need from the client. You send out the email or whatever you send out. The client responds with 5 of those things. 2 of those things are wrong. And now you're spending all this time just chasing clients and just trying to get that information in. And you might look a little bit like this. You send that initial request out. You've got the best intentions to start the process earlier. The client gives you a couple of things. Some of those are wrong. And now, rather than actually doing the work, your job is actually just about chasing documents. So you're not progressing the work any further. You're just chasing. And eventually, after a couple of questionable emails, a couple of calls, a couple of LinkedIns, a couple of pigeons, and a couple of WhatsApps, you finally get some or most of the data from the client. What this now means is you've got this mad rush. You're trying to meet the deadline. So you're up until 1, 2 a.m. in the morning, just trying to get all that information done. And the problem isn't so much getting the work done, it's getting the information in from the client. That's the real problem. So when we say about the chasing problem, that's explicitly what I'm talking to. So when we come to, typically for you, this is kind of how it might resonate. You've got data stored in different places. You've got something that does your onboarding, something that does your queries, something that does your tax collection, something that does anything else that sits in there. So your queries, for example. What that looks like in the day-to-day is you and your team are just endlessly following up. Every single day it's a, hey, how are you getting on with this? Do you think you'll get this over to us? What that then correlates into is jobs take twice as long as they should because you're spending more time just getting the info in. And because you've got things in all different places, from emails to portals to written on the side of like a receipt, everything in there is just really hard to track. So it's really hard to know, okay, well, where is this person in that process? What have we actually got? And it just becomes a bit of a minefield. So we've spoken about you, but the other thing is for the client. And one of the things that we always preach about is really great client experience. For a client's perspective, if you send them an email with all of these things that we need from you, and then another like add stuff in the portal here, go over here and do this here, the client feels massively overwhelmed. and the task seems a lot harder than it actually is. Things for them can also feel maybe a bit clunky, and it's not the best of the experience. And they just kind of feel generally lost and maybe give up a little bit and just don't want to send you the information because it just seems like such a difficult task. They don't know where to start. The impact that makes for you is you and your team never have any time because you're constantly chasing. Profit margins can get squeezed as well because a lot of people that I've spoken to don't actually quote for the time of chasing. They quote for the work, doing the work. They're not quoting for getting all of that, like all that information in. And the key here is exhausted and frustrated. I was at an event last week and we delivered a similar presentation to this. Everyone came up to us and said, I'm just so frustrated with this process. That was kind of the quote of the day. And then the impact for the client is really simple. They don't send you any of the info or any of the docs that you need. And typically, this is kind of what it looks like. You don't have a consistent method for getting information from clients. And it's kind of this tangled mess. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Lee, because obviously, Lee, before you start using Content Snare, I'm guessing some of what I've just spoken about will resonate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the image you've got on the screen there is probably a prime example coming off the back of January tax return season in the UK, where before Content Snare, we were emailing some clients, we were messaging some clients. For instance, you contact a particular client and say, we need your P60, we need your rental income, we need your sole trader information. Then you get a couple of emails with a couple of attachments, and you get another email with another attachment. Then you get a text message with something else. It was all a jumbled mess. And now we've introduced Content Snare, and prime example, what it did for us last month, we probably had our busiest January in terms of volume, but we actually had all our tax returns done with 10 days to spare. And most of that, as you said, is down to getting the client data so much faster than we used to. So whereas, as you said, you'd be chasing, once you get your Content Snare, can't think of the best way to use, requests set up correctly, and basically I outline everything the customer needs. If they miss anything, it actually doesn't allow them to move on to the next step if you set it up that way, or they can go back in and add things at a later date. So for instance, if they haven't got the P60 to hand, they can fill up the rest of the data and upload it. And one key feature we found in January was the messaging function as well. So if a customer, if you put something on the Content Snare saying we need this particular information, if they're not sure, rather than it becoming another email, they can just send you a message within the system. So what do you mean by this, Lee? You can answer it very quickly. So it cut out so much of the to and fro in between emails and multiple communication tools and shared folders, etc. So it made a massive difference to us, and it's just built into our processes now going forward.
Yeah, amazing. And Phil, when you're speaking with other firms, what are they telling you around this?
Look, I think you've got to generally look at MTD as a whole, right? And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit in the middle, but you know, the key with MTD is it's not just a legislation change; it's a way of working change, right? So if you're going into MTD, which we know legislation kicks in April, first submissions then come in after that. If you're going into MTD with processes that look like this, you're going to really complicate your day-to-day workflows, right? You're going to really complicate the way you're working. If you're a firm where your margins are tight, this is going to eat up your margin because you're now chasing 4 times a year. You're now chasing more. You're now having to have, you know, to multiply that complexity of work all through the year. Now, I mean, the plus point is theoretically at the end of the year, it'll flatten out a little bit, but rather than having those peaks and troughs, you're just going to have that consistent, relatively high level worth of work going through the year. So streamlining and making those processes more efficient is critical to that, because without that, it genuinely, you know, your life is going to be hard. So what I'm hearing is exactly that. You know, firms are looking now to really hone their processes, really kind of look at what they're doing and make sure that they are optimizing and kind of working on ways that they can reduce the day-to-day activities to enable them to do the work that the legislation requirements meet. Lee, does that sound about right for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, any accountant who's just been through a January will know that you've got clients that come to you at the moment, last minute. No matter how many requests you've sent them in the past, they come to you up last minute. You're now going to have that 4 times a year as a minimum. Something we'll touch on when we come on to our templates later on is from our practice point of view, with the help of Content Snare, we've streamlined our process ready for MT, which is now tried and tested with clients. That we're actually going to request the data on a monthly basis as opposed to quarterly. So rather than chasing people 4 times a month, they're going to be getting a request once a month. So if they haven't done it by the end of that month, we can chase them up. So we're not getting that bottleneck every quarter as well. So I think, as you said, the biggest thing with MTD is going to be getting that information and having the right systems in place. We're looking at, with a 50K threshold, HMRC are giving us a sort of a year to get used to it. Because when that 30K threshold kicks in 2027, that's going to pull a majority of sole traders and landlords into it anyway. So you've got a bit of a soft landing now to get everything in place, get your processes in place, work on it, develop it. Because next year it's really going to be a lot more rushed. So I think now is the time to really look at your processes. As you said, you can't be going forward with this multiple emails, messages coming from different angles. You need a set process in place, which I think Content Snare does really well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks both for your insights. Interesting to hear. Obviously, as a software vendor, we have all these ideas and ideologies. Just hear Lee say, actually, yeah, there's a problem. So maybe you're sat here now and you think, do you know what? You're probably in 2 camps right now, or maybe 3. Camp number 1 is, yeah, what you said resonates with me. We have that problem and we should look at it. Great. Keep watching. If you're, I'll be straight up with you, if you're right now sat there and think, you know what, this isn't a problem for us. We've got it all in hand. Information comes in. You could probably take the rest of the webinar. You don't necessarily need to watch the rest if you've got that solved. And if you're in the 3rd camp where you're like, I'm unsure, then keep going. But hopefully by now, you've understood the problem. What I'm going to talk to you now about is what Content Snare is and how we solve that problem. So what Content Snare is in a nutshell is a purpose-built tool for getting info and documents from clients. So the things we look to eliminate is that email back and forth, which Lee touched on with things like in-app communications, automated reminders, friendly requests. And we have this like philosophy internally that we're trying to make the experience really great for the clients so you can spend minutes collecting information rather than hours. And saying that aloud sounds a lot better than I thought it would. So glad that one landed. So what we do is we take this that you might be having right now. We take this element here and we turn it into this, giving you a consistent, simple, the key here is secure as well. Secure tool for getting information from clients. It's easy for them to provide you the info and documents you need. Everything flows into Content Snare and comes straight to you. On average, the process historically takes from getting, this is just getting info, is 25 hours. With Content Snare, getting and organizing all that data drops to sub 5 hours for most firms. And these are some of the things which makes it work. Is an amazing client experience. We really, really focus on making like our user, like we call it the UI, so the user interface, making that really simple for the clients to use. We make it incredibly secure with our ISO certification and lots of encryptions. But then there's some features in here which I'm going to show you in a minute, such as automatic reminders. There's probably nothing worse than you thinking, oh, I've got to send a couple of emails now. We'll do it for you. But the important bit here is you're getting a single source of truth. Everything you've asked for a client to give you is in one place. And then that also centralizes your communication. We then also have a bunch of different integrations that you can tie up. So through Zapier and Make as well, you can really build some custom stuff in there as well. So essentially, we make it really, really, really easy for clients to give you the information. And the question then would be, why would you use Content Snare? These are probably the 2 big things that we use. We regularly ask people for feedback and run surveys. On average, we reduce that time cost of chasing by 71%. So give or take, you're looking at 20 hours per month per employee. And then we're looking to reduce your email load by at least kind of 50%. And then obviously you've got the security. So this is the big question. Why MTD? And Phil and Lee have kind of touched on this already. Hopefully you remember this slide from earlier. That whole, this is how it usually goes. You ask the clients for the information, they ghost you, you're working in this mad rush up until the deadline. As Phil said, this process, this January rush that some of you might be experiencing is now going to be happening 4 times a year. And the problem with this happening 4 times a year is typically for this type of work, you can't charge a huge amount. So your margins are a lot smaller. But secondly, you've now got a lot more work to do. So being incredibly efficient in this area is going to be critical. And when we look at like the typical job, you could say the majority of the time is just getting the information from the clients. The actual doing the work isn't that big. So where Content Snare fits into all of this is that making this part a little bit more efficient for you. So what I'm going to do now is going to give you a demo of Content Snare. Hopefully you've got some questions as well. So if you've got any questions, remember, just chuck them into the Q&A in the chat. So what you're looking at right now is the Content Snare dashboard. So the first thing that's going to be critical when you've got lots of requests for information going everywhere is having a centralized place for that. That's what this dashboard does. Everything that you've sent out to a client, whether it's currently out and your clients begin to give you some of the information, so waiting stands for waiting for approval, or it's been published, it all lives in here, even completed stuff as well. So what's really great is, say for example, let's take this Tom test. Let's say this was an MTD quarterly request that you sent to a client last quarter. If you wanted to, you could duplicate that with questions and answers. So you could say, this is what you did last quarter, just update the stuff that's changed this quarter. So we're making it really easy for the client. From your perspective, you can drill down. So you can drill down to owners. So that's your team members. Team member goes on holiday. You can see exactly where the requests are. You can drill down to a client as well. We're going to jump into reminders. So this is part of what Lee's touched on already. So one of the big things that we have is automatic reminders. So these will do all of the follow-up for you. So you no longer have to chase the client. This is just a default schedule. You can build your own schedules, and rather than just being a generic follow-up, it's following up based on what's happening within the Content Snare request. You can completely customize this. And then we have event notifications. So this will fire out notifications to you as well as your client as to what's happening within the tool. So you don't have to send separate communications. It all happens in here. Really great example of that is all fields completed. Client's done everything. You're going to get an email, text message, or whatever alert you've set up, ready for you to have a look at that information. I'm going to jump into one of Lee's MTD templates here. Before I get into that, we have all of these templates here. So one of the big things of Content Snare is when you send a request out, we have templates that are pre-built that you can customize, turn them into your own, and they're just used as a platform for you to get information from clients. So when it comes to actually sending a request, you can use a template. But what you can also do is utilize the new request. So you can build stuff from ad hoc. I'm guessing, David, you got a question.
Yes, I've got a question that fits in perfectly. So a question that's come through from Ollie, so thanks Ollie, is how do you balance the having basically a collection of templates versus having a client specific one? So how do you balance the time of just setting up that collection versus having a specific one to each client that is bespoke to them?
Do you want me to answer that, Tom?
Yeah, go knock stuff out.
Yeah, so what allows you to do effectively, right, is probably where Tom was about to come on to, the templates. You have your basic template set up, okay? So let's say you have, for instance, a sole trader where you want to copy the sales invoices, purchase invoice and bank statements. So you can have a template specifically designed for that. But then if there's something else, it's so simple just to add that little question on the bottom. So for instance, if you needed a P60, just pull up the template you've already got set up and then just add an additional field on the bottom. So it's very easy to tailor it to individual clients. And once you've got it set up for that client, if it's going to be on a recurring basis, so every quarter, every month, that sort of thing, that template can be saved for that client and just sent straight out each month.
Amazing. So I'll show you exactly what Lee spoke about. So just to reiterate, when it comes to sending a request, you can use a template. You don't have to. You can build it from scratch. You can, if you wanted to, you can use the AI builder. So you could just list all the stuff you want, and this will go and build it for you. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to use Lee's MTD Sole Trader with a CIS in here. So what you're seeing right now, and Ollie, to kind of answer your question a little bit, say this is a template, you want to personalize this specifically for one person. We go new request, we can give it a name. This here, this just explains what Content Snare is and how does it work for the client. You can customize what goes in there. You could turn it off if you want. We can choose who's also going to be the owner. And for those that use FYI, we can actually store that data directly into the client's FYI. So now you're in the builder. Any changes that we make now will only be reflected in this request. It won't impact the template. You've got at the top, you've got instructions. So this can give additional information. But what we do is we give you the ability to ask the question, for example, here, give us your sales invoices, and then add the instructions here so it's super clear for the client. They understand what's after them. When it comes to actually building a request or asking your client any source of information, these are all the different questions you can actually ask of somebody. So single line text, great for like quick confirmations. Multi-line text, we need more info. File upload, great, obviously, bank statements, certificates, sales, all that sort of stuff. Validation fields are great. Address, for example, the validation fields, they'll stop things like typos and clients getting stuff wrong. So they're actually really good for onboarding. For example, the address finder is powered by Google Address Finder. Selection boxes make it super easy. Which of these apply? Have you gone through and updated your auto entry? Have you gone and done your reconciliations? Tables are great for breaking, for example, like if you look at donations, have you made any donations? List the charity, list the amount, and list when you did it. So you can build these requests, but the thing to take away here is you can completely build these however you want them to look. Every single question is configurable. So every question has its own mini menu here. This is one that's Lee has built. What I'm going to draw your attention to is you'll see here effects. One of the best ways to offer a personalized experience at scale is using conditions. So depending on how somebody answers a question, it will show or hide the relevant questions to them. So we've asked, did you have any income that isn't covered by these uploads here? If it equals yes, this will appear. If it equals no, they won't even see this question. I've used the table here. So I can just go through, and if I want to personalize this, I can. And I can add instructions in here. I can add attachments, whatever I want. We can say, did you use your personal car for work last month? If they equal yes, use a personal car. We can even pop the instructions of what actually counts in there, so the client knows exactly what they need to give you. Once we're happy with this, we send it out to the client. So if the client exists, we just choose them from here. We can add multiple people in one request. This here is what Lee was talking about earlier, means they can ask questions on the request. This means that they don't have to create a username or a password. So that's one less barrier for them to get in to actually give you the info. But we can offer them the option to protect it with a 4-digit PIN code that they choose. This is the communication schedule. So this means that you don't have to chase the client up anymore. That does all of it for you. And then you say, when does this go out? Now or at a specific date? When's it due back in? This will now go to the client. Once that's with the client, I should be able to, hopefully if I'm any good at my job, should be able to show you exactly what the client sees. So this is exactly what the client will see. Your logo is here. They create a 4-digit PIN code and they're in. There's literally nothing else for them to do in terms of setup. That's it. That's that first screen of how does this work. Then I go through. That's that little instruction of what is this? Then self-employed. I can upload my sales invoices. Lee said about the questions. I can ask my questions here. So if I don't have everything and I'm not ready to do that, I can add that comment, move to the next question. Did I have any other income that isn't covered? No. You're seeing, hopefully, we only serve one question at a time. The reason we do that is because we don't want to overwhelm the client. I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things is a sense of overwhelm. That's not anybody doing anything. That one question at a time, just make it super manageable. You can see here, did you use your personal car for work last month? Underneath, there's nothing. As soon as I hit yes, it will then add the additional questions in there. I've got obviously the answers here. I can enter my info. You'll also notice, hopefully, that this is auto saving as well. So if I were to get distracted, so you can see here, if I were to get distracted and go away, it'll pick it up where it left off. So I just submit this information. You can see here, do you have any expenses you were unable to upload auto entry? Yes, I did. The expenses question now appears. So from a client experience, it's super easy. And the only thing for me to focus on is the question in front of me. From your perspective, once the client has given you that information, you then have this approval flow. So this means you can actually control the stuff that's coming in. So that's the one that we were just working on. I'm going to show you probably one of my favorite things, this activity feed here. This will actually show you exactly when the client viewed the request. So if the client says, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, you can say, well, actually, on the 12th of February at this time, this is when you logged in. My time's obviously a little bit different because I'm in Australia. So the info has come in, you can approve, reject, or revise. So if you're happy with that, you can approve it. If you're not happy with it, you can reject it. You can say, this is why I'm rejecting it. And you can actually give the client a specific reason. So from the client side, what would happen right now? They would get the rejection. They'd see exactly what is wrong, and they can just go and solve that one specific issue straight away. The comment, so you'll see here, the comment, this is where we can have the discussion. So keeping it out of email, we're keeping it all in here. I can put the answer here. So everything relating to the client in terms of getting information all lives here. The final part I'm going to show you before I stop talking, because don't need to get bored of me, is recurring and bulk. So what Lee was saying earlier, you can actually set this stuff to auto run. So let's say you've built your MTD template, you're happy with the clients that it's going to go to. What you're essentially doing is you're choosing that template. So we're going to go this template here. We're happy that that template's in there. You've got your conditionals, you've got your control set up. We've got some toggles here, just kind of giving like the name, etc. We choose the clients that we want to send this to. We then say, when is it going out? Now on a set date. When does it end? Doesn't. And then we say, this goes out every 3 months, or this goes out every month on the 1st. Hit save and continue. What will happen now, and this default, this communication schedule, what will happen now, every month, this will automatically go out. It'll automatically chase until the client gives me the information. So you're picking it up when it's done. The final thing I want to show you, and I promise I will stop talking after this, is my favorite feature. One of the biggest things that I hear a lot of people tell me is people giving you stuff in the wrong format. So I said every question was configurable. You'll see here, file upload. You can actually control exactly what file is uploaded. So if you can only accept PDF sales invoices, we can apply that. So now the client can only give me PDF invoices. That's the nutshell of Content Snare. What we're going to do is turn that off, get cameras on now, and we'll start obviously chatting to Lee about his experience. So I guess, Lee, when you first started using Content Snare, what was like the light bulb moment, or the bit that you thought to yourself?
I think the light bulb moment for us was just having those multiple emails and things, and completely chasing documents all the time. You know, we do a lot of VAT returns. As a practice, we've got 400 clients spread across 2 full-time employees. Okay, so we do a lot of work between 2 of us, and we were finding we were spending so much time chasing and asking for the same repetitive information. So we were looking for something that could basically set, every time there's a VAT return, every time there's a tax return, a simple process for the client to follow. And Content Snare's done that for us. So main moment for me was, obviously, we met on LinkedIn, had a quick chat about things, but just seeing how easy and streamlined the process is, not just for ourselves, but mainly for the clients. And all the clients we've rolled out to have said how much easier this is than the old way of sending them a request via email, asking them to upload documents to various different portals. It's so streamlined and easy. And what a lot of people love about it is it works just as easy on a phone as it does on a laptop or computer. It's the same process. So whereas you've got a lot of clients who use a computer, you've got your one-man band plumber, say, on the road, he gets exactly the same request. He can just upload the images directly from his phone. He's not being forced to do something like a lot of programs make you upload directly from folders, that sort of thing. It just allows you to streamline your process so easy for each individual client, and having that ability to personalize it to clients, because every client's different. Obviously, you've got your main fundamentals of, you need bank statements, you need sales invoices, purchase invoices. You know, we do a lot of work with auto entry accounts prep, so you get a lot of the receipt information in through that, but you still need some further information where they haven't got receipts for, or bank transactions. You can tailor your request to each individual one, and it's streamlined our process so much. I reckon it's gained us 10 hours a week.
10 hours. Oh, well, that's a lot. That's a lot. We should probably do a case study. So you touched on the client experience. I'm a big advocate of the client experience, because I think moving forward, it will be one of the biggest differentiators for firms, is how clients are experiencing with their account, especially as you're going to have a lot more touch points now. So you said there, clients love it. Have you had any specific feedback, or any kind of like clients come to say, this is amazing, makes my life easier, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we've had a lot of feedback like that. And when we introduced it, that was one of the things we did, was speak to clients. We rolled it out with some clients who've been with us a while and using different processes, use them as experienced clients with us. They know us well, we know us well, and asked them for feedback. And what they all said was how much more easier and streamlined it is. And they love the fact that if they haven't got that bit of information to hand, they can move on to the next question and come back to it when they get home from work, for instance. So I haven't got that information on me at the moment. It's just made it so much easier for clients, rather than, I need this information, and then they send you half it over and go, sorry, Lee, I haven't got that to hand. It becomes another email chasing back and forth. Now they've got the habit of uploading what they've got available at that point, and then when they get home in the evening, oh, I didn't upload that P60, or I didn't upload that bank statement. They just do it, and the reminders are there for them. And what we found is, particularly, we do use it a lot now with VAT returns. We used to be chasing clients probably up until the 15th, 18th of the month. Now, because we've got those regular reminders that go out on the 1st of every single month, they've uploaded that information constantly all the time. So they're going into it, perhaps at the beginning of the month, uploading what they can, and then as things are coming in, they're just adding to it rather than waiting until they've got everything and then trying to upload it or send you a bit here, a bit there. So it's just streamlined process. And as I said, I think the ease of use, it's not just in the building of the product. So it's easy to build those questionnaires yourself, but for the client to use as well. Like when we initially give them the guide how to use it, Content Snare, but once they've used it for one thing, we remove that guide because it's such an easy process of you're just answering questions effectively. And as you said, if you keep it to that one question per line, it keeps it so easy for the client.
Yeah, okay. And there'll be obviously a lot of people here saying, like, this is great. Like, I can see it's going to benefit. How exactly does it fit into your current process? And then once you've answered that, could you start giving us a bit of an insight into how it's going to fit into your process for MTD?
Yeah, absolutely. So we literally use it from start to finish with clients now. So even on our onboarding stage, we use it as our onboarding questionnaire now. So when we arrange our initial meeting with a client, we send them out a little questionnaire just about their business, that sort of thing. When they agree to come on board, we send them out our onboarding questionnaire, giving all the information for MLR, that sort of thing. And then by the time they're actually coming on board with us having to produce documents, they're so used to the system already. So, by the time they're actually uploading, say, VAT return information or tax return information, it's probably the third time they've used Content Snare. It's sort of second nature to them. And what we've done particularly with our MTD processes, so we've been part of the MTD process development team with HMRC and things like that for a number of years now. How can we get this information quicker? Because you're only going to have that 30 days roughly at the end of each quarter to get information. So what we've done for our MTD process, as anyone who takes up the offer today, is we've built templates for if you want to gather the information quarterly, but our practice we've designed about getting that information monthly. So what we're going to do is gather the information and then import it into auto entry accounts prep on a monthly basis. So by the time you get to the end of that quarter when you've got to file the tax return, most of the work is already done. So as you said, with MTD, I think the hardest part is going to be getting the information, not the actual processing. We've got a process now with a normal standard sole trader who's got bank transactions and say less than 20 receipts a month. Once we got the information in, put it into accounts prep, we can do the actual preparation of the data in about 10 minutes. The longest part is making sure you get that information. Now, if you've got 50 or 100 clients getting that information to you once a quarter, what we've done is streamlined our process that rather than having 4 busy quarters, we're going to have 12 much easier ones.
Okay, yeah, so you're taking like a monthly approach, so it's more, you're taking smaller bite sizes rather than just trying to do it all at once. And yes. I'm guessing we have a question here from our pal David.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So question 3 from Paul. So Lee, do you send everything out yourself, or do you have any sort of form of admin support in the business or externally that helps you out?
We've got 2 staff members in the business on a full-time basis, myself and my partner. Her role is a client manager, so I do the request if it's something specific. But as we've set up majority on a recurring basis now, there's very little actual request needing to be set up. It's only when a new client comes on board. So that'll either be prepared by myself or Leah then, depending on who's working on that particular case.
Okay, so you're basically, as much as possible, you're utilizing the recurring automation.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's going to be a big thing going forward, obviously, with MTD. And we're now building it into our full VAT processes, as I said. So whenever there's a VAT return due, if we've got 30 VAT returns to do this month, on the first of the month, we haven't had all the information we need, it'll send a reminder out. We're just trying to streamline as much of it as we can.
Yeah, okay, cool. And just to add some context onto that, so we have a lot of firms where maybe they're across different multiple offices, or they've got like a practice management team. Those teams will actually, because you can, for example, I can log in and assign a request in one of my staff members or team members' names. So from a client's perspective, they've got a request from their accountant or their client manager. Content Snare is obviously then driving all that behind. So you could have multiple staff members sending stuff out on behalf of everyone else, or just have a like a 1 or 2 ownership of that. I guess you kind of talk about, in terms of your process, Content Snare kind of maybe kicks that off in the sense of we're getting all the information in, and then you're putting that through auto entry for the accounts prep. Is there anything else in there that we're missing that people might want to know?
I think the messaging function is really good, as you said already, where people can raise comments and that sort of thing. You've also got the portal for sharing documents the other way. Now, it's not so much document gathering, it's actually sharing documents securely the other way. So what we use it for is when we run the pay slips for everyone on a monthly basis, each individual client has their own portal that we can share documents with. So if you're sending out their pay slips, if you're sending out copies of CIS reports you've run for clients, that sort of thing. You've also got the side of, it's not just getting the information in, you can share it the other way securely as well. You've all got it under one umbrella, whereas before we used to have a portal for sharing documents with clients. Now we've all got it in one place.
Yeah, okay, cool. So it would be fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, your process is literally Content Snare goes out to either gather the additional information or maybe nudge the person to do everything. The rest of that's collated, and then you're preparing that and submitting that through auto entry.
Auto entry accounts prep we use it a lot for MTD.
Okay.
Obviously, as you see with if anyone takes it up with the templates, we built 2 templates for each individual client effectively. So a lot of people like to use auto entry for uploading the receipts when they're on the go. And then you've got the client, from research we've done, they just want one place for it all. So what we've done then is basically built the same template, but one saying, thank you for uploading your documents via auto entry, is there anything else? And then a separate one saying, as you don't want to use a separate tool, you can upload all your receipts via here, because effectively they could upload 30 or 40 receipts to Content Snare, and then we'll just download them and walk them straight into auto entry anyway.
Okay, so you're kind of picking up some that.
Yeah, you can use that, and that'll work with any. God, sorry, that'll work with any software. Obviously we're very much Sage applicants, auto entry accounts prep, that sort of thing. But if you're a Xero user or QuickBooks user, it's the same information we're all gathering. So if you've got a client that doesn't want to use more than one piece of software, you can just get it all uploaded at one and then just slide it in yourself anyway.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, look, thank you for sharing that. Obviously, I invited Phil onto the webinar as well, because Phil is working with a lot of firms, helping them get MTD ready. He's also working with Lee as part of their, I guess, MTD project. Phil, I'm going to kind of obviously hand this over to you a little bit. I think what would be great to hear from you is maybe, first and foremost, what you're seeing in the market space. What are other firms doing to get ready for MTD? And what is Sage doing, bringing out to help?
Yeah, so I think, look, 2 really good questions. Lee, I want to loop back about auto entry accounts prep in a minute, not because I want to sit here and do a sales pitch on it. What I want you to do is just talk a little bit about how you're using it, because actually I think there are different challenges here, right? Like you've got your businesses that are going to come in, that are going to, want more from you, and MTD is a great opportunity to have those conversations, right? To digitize, to support them, to get them moving forward. You're always going to have those customers that are, your shoebox customers that come in and see you once a year, twice a year, deliver you a bunch of paper, walk out, and then expect you to do everything. I think that's one of the biggest challenges with MTD, and that's one of the biggest challenges we're seeing, is that firms are having to talk to their clients about moving them from dropping their shoebox off to actually using technology. And let's be honest, some people don't want to, right? Some people don't want to use technology. They don't want to have a ledger app on their phone. They don't want to use an auto entry to scan receipts. They want to just go in, chuck it at their account and pay money for the accountant to do it and solve the problem. And that's a tough solution, right? Because then you've got this kind of, what do we do as a practice? Do we spend a lot of money on a ledger for a customer that's never going to use it, where we can't really force them to use it, but we're paying 15, 20, 30 pound a month for that client on tight margins? It doesn't really work out. And I think that's where you need a different solution. And Lee, you've referenced it a couple of times, right? But you use one of our products, Auto Entry Accounts Prep, which you describe as a perfect solution to solve that problem, right? Like that kind of client. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what it is and how you use it? And I think that will frame a solution to solving that problem, because I think that's the biggest problem. I can't remember what the stats are off the top of my head, but there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses that still don't have a solution, according to HMRC, that still don't have a solution for MTD. Now, Lee, do you want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about some of the other stuff we're doing to support businesses as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So auto-entry accounts prep is effectively, a way where you put all the data into one place and then it lists all your transactions on one screen and you can categorize it so quickly. Okay, I'll give you an example. Last week, we did a job on it with 900 transactions and we categorized them all in about 15 minutes, okay? So you can effectively get your receipts in, you can get your bank statements all in, and Content Snare is perfect for that customer, as you said, who doesn't want your digital software. They don't want the full Xero package or full Sage package or full QuickBooks. They just want, as you said, I'm used to just dropping a pile of paperwork in. Content Snare allows them just upload all that paperwork in. What we then do, we slide it into auto entry, so you've got your receipts. And then what auto entry does, it allows you to categorize all these receipts, whether they come in from the receipts, whether they're on the bank statements, produce your trial balance, produce your profit and loss report. It streamlines the process so much to, I probably mentioned this to you last week, Phil. Once we've got that data in, we're working on clients where we're doing their monthly MTD work in less than 10 minutes. Because once you get it into the software, as I said, it's gathering the information is the hardest bit. Once you get it into the software, and it'll be a whole new ball game again, showing auto entry accounts prep. Once it's in there, it's so speedily way of doing things. And as you said, for that client who doesn't want, I don't want ledger accounting, I don't want Sage, I don't want Xero, they're not really interested. But what they do want is a profit and loss report once a quarter. They've got all that in, they're built, and it's so streamlined for them. And what we're finding is, it's so pain-free if we can get the information in and put into that software that the clients aren't bothered by it. So those shoebox clients who drop in paperwork off once a year or once a quarter or whatever, using Content Snare to get that information in, that's the hardest part for them. But because we're making it so easy through Content Snare, the background bit, they don't care how you get the result of submitted MTD. They just need it done and show that they're compliant. And that's where accounts prep's your ideal situation then.
Yeah, great. And I love that. Like, you can do it in 10 minutes. We've had a good conversation about that. But like that's just one slant of how we can support, right? And I think one of the things that's been really interesting, we made an announcement a couple of weeks ago that we are teaming up with HSBC to power their small business accounts with MTD software. So if you are that MTD small business that just has a bank account and just wants to do everything simply, there's a solution for that. We've then got this great solution for accountants in accounts prep, but then we've got different ledger solutions as well for those businesses that actually need to be compliant with the legislation, but actually want to grow and want more information and want more control over what they're doing. And I think that's the key thing, right? Like, whatever technology you decide on to use with your clients across MTD, it's got to be right for that client and where they're going in the future. So don't just opt for the cheapest solution because it's the cheapest solution, because all that does down the line is that creates another potential technology challenge, right, where you've got to move someone. Kind of understand that client. And this, to me, is the great opportunity of MTD, is understanding those clients, to really understand what your clients need today and in the future, and then building the right technology to support them through that growth. Because, you know, I used this analogy yesterday with someone, right? I think it's a good analogy. I've been using Apple phones since the first iPhone, right? I was that guy me and Lee are always at odds at this one, right? Lee is an Android man. I've been using Apple phones since the first one, right? And do I think Apple is the best phone? No. Do I think the software is the best on it? Probably not. Would I go through the pain of changing? It would have to be significant. There'd have to be a significant reason for me to do it, right? But if that pain becomes too big, I would. If someone gave me an Android phone tomorrow and said you can only use this, I would probably cry. I'll be honest. You know, you would see a near 50-year-old man like shed tears. But that's the truth with technology, right? It's hard to change. So if you're not working with your client to make the right decision today, that's going to cause pain and friction down the road. So whatever technology you do, utilize this as a reset. The other thing that I'm finding around MTD is changing pricing conversation as well. So people are having to kind of think about how they price, how they approach clients, how they go about that whole business. Because actually, if you're planning on charging your clients the same to do MTD as you are to do what you're doing for them now, Lee's shaking his head. Lee's like, no, don't do that. It's a mistake, right? Like you're enhancing the service. You're doing more. You should absolutely look at the value and the service you're providing around that. So it's a good reset. So all of these conversations are happening, right? But I think the key thing is there are still people out there that haven't got solutions, and it's down to the accountants to have those conversations and make sure those people are ready. Because if you're waiting till a week beforehand to put all this in place, that's going to make January look like an easy cakewalk, right? Like so sorry, that's my watch just setting off for some reason. So now
again.
it is. So I had this. I brought Lee up to the Newcastle office last week, and all he did was just rib me about technology for the entire time I was there. But yeah, look, Tom, I think ultimately it's a great opportunity to look at what those problems are and start to resolve them. What I've loved from what you've shown me about Content Snare is exactly that, right? It solves one of those most difficult parts. As Lee said, it solves that most difficult part, which is the communication part with clients and the chasing and the getting that data in. Once you solve that and you put it alongside whatever technology you're using, that's a great way to kind of supercharge what you're doing in your approach. And then, just make sure you're looking at pricing and you're looking at terms and conditions and you're looking at software that can kind of really streamline it. I think that's the way to go. AI helps. We've got a great AI MTD agent as well that takes away some of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, amazing. I really liked about the pricing conversation. I think that's going to be a really tough one. I'm going to give them a shout out, but there is a group called MTD Therapy. One of my pals, Tom Bickle, is running that. So if you are like, how do we price this, or how do we get clients to buy into these sort of stuff? Maybe you're having discussions now, you don't know where to go in that side. The MTD Therapy community is a really good place for a lot of that. I'd be really interested to see that pricing conversation, like how people are having that with clients, because I know historically that's been a bit of a challenge. So we're going to start closing out now. I've sent David, hopefully he's there in the ether, a link. So that will take you to the Content Snare trial link if you want. I will put my one-to-one booking link as well. So if anyone wants to have a chat with me, I would not be offended if you don't. You can obviously book a demo with me. We have our demo here, our offer here, like I said, the code MTD100. I wanted to give you a free month. So you'll get your trial, but on top of that, you'll get a whole free month. That will give you enough time, hopefully, to try this out to see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. If it does, great. You can scan this QR code to go straight to your trial account. I will share my Calendly link, but what we will do now is just have a bit of Q&A time.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, sorry, I've just dropped that link in the chat so everybody can see it, but we will send it in the follow-up email as well.
Cool.
Just so that's in there. Perfect. Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions. If you guys have got any more questions, we've got 6.5 minutes to rattle through as many as possible. One question here from Lucy. So Lee, how long do you think it took you from actually setting up your account to getting on board, using it properly and sending stuff out to clients? Like, what's that timeline process in terms of quantity of your time?
What I would recommend is anyone who does sign up for a trial, and now I don't want to fill Tom's diary too much, but it's worth just having a quick half-hour session with Tom, just for him to show you the full functionality, because that was worth his weight in gold to me. But in terms of implementation, once you start using it, start with a basic template, try it with one client. Once you get in a habit and you just get more confident at using it, it's really simple. So from an implementation time, I think what I agreed with Tom at the time was when we took it on, I said I want to be completely moved off within 30 days from all my other document gathering softwares and things like that. It was easily achievable. But in terms of actually implementing it, once you get into the habit of using it, it takes minutes to build a questionnaire. And, there's 2 of us using it now, and literally, if I've got a particular circumstance I'm working on, I know I can just build a Content Snare questionnaire in 2 or 3 minutes to send out to the client, because I know now what documents are requested, how to build the links, that sort of thing. It's worth just having that little session with Tom, I think, just for him to show you all the functionality. And as I said, once it's implemented, once you've got those recurring transactions set up as well, you aren't going to do it anymore. So it's doing it automatic for you. So it's worth spending that little bit of time when you first started off just to get everything set up correctly.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Lee. And I have included the link in for Tom's meeting diary as well. So you feel free to book up his diary. I'm sure he'll be happy with that. That's what it's there for. So just another question that's come through. Someone says, from the templates, when you did this sort of screen view, from the templates, it looks like there's lots of other sectors in there as well. So is this something that we can recommend to clients and people that aren't accountants, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So Content Snare actually initially started for digital marketing agencies, and it wasn't until about 5-6 years ago a couple of accountants said we can really use this, and then we've kind of doubled down, and all our emphasis is on accounting and bookkeepers. But yeah, there are you first and foremost, you can absolutely refer it to other businesses, and there are other templates for other industries in there as well.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. So that's it. We're all out of questions. Thank you, everybody, for the input and the questions. They were really good. Anything else from you guys to wrap up?
I just want to say that if anyone does want to reach out and find out a little bit more about auto entry accounts prep or any of the MTD solutions we're putting together at Sage, please feel free to reach out. I will share in our chat. I don't know if you can share that with the wider one, just my diary link, but I'm more than happy to have a chat and kind of show you a little bit about what we're doing, just in case you're interested.
Perfect. Brilliant. And I'll send both of those links in the follow-up email as well. So we've got that. If you want to book in a call, even with Phil or Tom on there. So thanks everybody for jumping on today. Thanks Phil, Lee and Tom for that. Really informative, really good. Just a reminder to everybody, you will get a follow-up email as well after the call, and that will have the recording on. And that will have the links on, so feel free to put those meetings in and send that recording around to anybody else as well. Have a good rest of your day, whether that's an afternoon, evening, whatever it may be. Enjoy that, and thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.